3 weeks after buying the Vanguard, Jiwoo made a discovery that changed everything. She was deep inside the ship's main computer system, trying to replace a damaged navigation unit, when her scanner started beeping in a pattern she had never heard before. "Han Sol, come look at this," she called from inside the narrow maintenance tunnel. Han Sol crawled through the tight space until he could see Jiwoo's face lit up by the glow of her diagnostic screen. "What is it?" "The navigation computer has extra memory banks," she said, pointing at the screen. "Way more than a fighter ship should have. And they're not empty." Han Sol squeezed in beside her to get a better look. The screen showed layers of data, stacked like the floors of a building. Most of it looked normal: star charts, flight logs, weapon systems data. But at the bottom, almost hidden, was something else. "What's that?" Han Sol pointed to a section of data that pulsed with a soft blue light. "I don't know. It's encrypted with a code I've never seen before. And it's old, really old." Jiwoo tapped her scanner against the data port. "According to this, some of this information is older than human space travel." "That's impossible," Han Sol said. "This is a human ship. I know. But the computer doesn't lie." They spent the rest of the day trying to access the mysterious data. Every code they tried failed. Every backdoor was blocked. Finally, as the station's artificial day cycle was ending, Jiwoo had an idea. "What if it's not a normal code?" she said. "What if it's mathematical? Like numbers? Sort of. Math is the same everywhere in the universe. If someone wanted to leave a message that any intelligent species could understand, they would use math." Jiwoo started working with number sequences instead of letter codes. She tried simple patterns first, counting numbers, prime numbers, geometric progressions. Nothing worked. Then she tried something more complex. "The Fibonacci sequence," she whispered, typing rapidly. 0 1 1 2 3 5 8. The screen flickered. Then, slowly, the blue data began to unlock. What they saw made both of them sit in stunned silence. The screen filled with star charts unlike anything in the Federation databases. These maps showed not just star positions, but the movement of entire galaxies across millions of years. There were technical diagrams of machines they couldn't understand. And everywhere, written in pure mathematical language, were messages. "Can you read any of it?" Han Sol asked. Jiwoo studied the symbols and numbers. "Some of it. This part here looks like coordinates. And this." She pointed to a section covered in complex equations. "This might be building instructions. For what, I don't know." The most frightening thing on the screen was a counter. It showed numbers that were clearly counting down, and according to the system's clock, it had been running for over 50,000 years. Now it showed less than 6 months remaining. Counting down to what? Han Sol asked. "I don't know. But whoever left this message thought it was important enough to hide it in a human ship." The next day, they brought Han Sol's uncle Taiho to see what they had found. Taiho had been an engineer for the Federation Navy before he retired to the station. He was the smartest person Han Sol knew when it came to machines and computers. When Taiho saw the data, his face went pale. "Where did you find this?" "It was hidden in the ship's memory banks," Jiwoo explained. "We think it's been there since the ship was built." Taiho studied the information for hours, making notes and running calculations on his personal computer. Finally, he sat back in his chair and looked at the two young people. "This data says it comes from something called the Architects," he said slowly. "According to these files, they were an advanced civilization that existed long before humans ever left Earth." "Aliens?" Han Sol asked. "Maybe. The data isn't clear about that. But look at this section here." Taiho pointed to a complex diagram. "These are blueprints for a faster-than-light drive that's far more advanced than anything we use today. And this part shows weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets." Jiwoo leaned forward. "Why would an ancient alien civilization put their technology in a human ship?" "That's the strange part," Taiho said. "According to this data, they didn't just put it in one ship. They put pieces of it in hundreds of ships scattered across the galaxy, like they were waiting for someone to find it and put all the pieces together." The countdown timer continued to tick away, showing 5 months and 23 days remaining. Whatever the architects had been planning, it was almost time. Over the next few days, they worked to decode more of the message. They learned that the architects had hidden their technology not just in ships but in space stations, planetary defense systems, and even some of the machinery used in everyday life. It was everywhere, waiting to be discovered. The coordinates in the data pointed to a location in the void sector, a region of space that most people avoided because it seemed empty and dangerous. According to the architect's message, there was a facility there that contained the central control system for all their hidden technology. Someone needs to go there, Taeho said as they studied the star charts. Before the countdown reaches 0. Why? Jiwoo asked. What happens when it hits 0? Taeho pointed to a section of text they had just decoded. According to this, the architects left their technology as a gift for whoever was ready to inherit it. But if no one comes to claim it before the countdown ends, all of it will self-destruct. Hansol felt his heart racing. All of it? You mean all the hidden technology and all the ships and stations? Everything. It would cripple the galaxy's technology overnight. Millions of ships would lose their engines. Space stations would lose power. It would be chaos. The three of them sat in silence, staring at the countdown timer as it continued its relentless march toward 0. Somewhere in the galaxy, an ancient civilization had left a test for their descendants. Pass the test and inherit technology beyond imagination. Fail, and watch civilization collapse. We have to tell someone, Jiwoo said. The Federation government or the Galactic Council. Taeho shook his head. They'll never believe us. A 12-year-old boy, a teenage girl, and a retired engineer claiming they found ancient alien technology in a junk ship? They'll think we're crazy. Then what do we do? Hansol asked. Taeho looked at the boy who had started all this by buying a broken spaceship. We fix this ship properly. We make it fly, and then we go to those coordinates ourselves. Hansol nodded. Deep down, he had known this moment would come. The ship had been calling to him from the moment he first saw it in the scrapyard. Now he understood why. It wasn't just a broken fighter ship. It was a key, and he was the one meant to use it. The moment Hansol touched the crystal, everything changed. Knowledge flowed into his mind like water rushing through a broken dam. He saw the truth about human technology, about the ships and stations and weapons that everyone thought were primitive compared to alien designs. They had all been built with hidden architect systems, waiting for the day when someone would know how to activate them. The crystal showed him the galaxy as it really was, a vast network of human-built facilities disguised as natural phenomena or alien ruins. Every species that thought they had discovered advanced technology on their own had actually found pieces of the architect legacy. And now, with Hansol's acceptance of his inheritance, all of it was awakening. What have I done? Hansol gasped as the visions finally stopped. You have given your people their true power, Boram said gently. But with power comes responsibility. The other species of the galaxy will not accept this change easily. As if to prove her point, alarms began sounding throughout the Nexus. On the displays around them, they could see hundreds of ships gathering outside the station. Word of the facility's appearance had spread throughout the galaxy, and every major power wanted to claim the architect technology for themselves. The Altarian Empire is demanding that we surrender the station to them, Jiwoo reported, monitoring the communications. They say it belongs to the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Collective is claiming it as a sacred site that must be protected by all species together, Dongmin added. And there are at least 20 other species sending similar demands. Hansol could feel the Nexus responding to the growing threat. Defensive systems that had been dormant for millions of years were coming online. Weapons powerful enough to destroy entire fleets were charging up. The station was preparing for war. No, Hansol said firmly. That's not what the architects wanted. He reached out with his mind, connecting to the Nexus's control systems. The station had been designed to respond to human thoughts, and Hansol was learning to use that connection. Instead of powering weapons, he activated the communication arrays. Attention all ships, he broadcast across every frequency. My name is Hansol. I am 12 years old and I represent the human species. I want to talk. The response was immediate and loud. Dozens of alien captains started speaking at once, their voices overlapping in a chaos of demands, threats, and questions. How could a human child claim to speak for anyone? What right did humans have to control architect technology? Why should anyone listen to someone who wasn't even old enough to legally pilot a ship? Because, Hansol said, his voice carrying clearly over the noise, I'm the one who found it. And because the architects left it for humans to find, that got their attention. The alien voices fell silent. You're lying, an Altarian admiral finally said. The architects were the first spacefaring civilization. They couldn't have been human. They were, Hansol replied, and I can prove it. Working through the Nexus's systems, Hansol began activating architect technology throughout the galaxy. On Earth, the planet's defensive satellites suddenly revealed weapon systems that had been hidden for centuries. Human colonies that had seemed weak and vulnerable showed energy shields that could withstand any attack. And most dramatically of all, the human ships that had been scattered throughout the gathered fleet began to transform. The changes happened slowly at first, then faster as the hidden systems came online. Hull plating shifted and flowed like liquid metal, revealing sleek new designs. Engines that had seemed primitive suddenly glowed with power that made nearby alien ships look outdated. Weapon arrays emerged from hidden compartments, displaying firepower that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen. Impossible, the Zephyrian collective mind whispered across the communications link. Human technology is inferior. We have observed it for centuries. You've observed what we wanted you to see, Hansol said. The architects designed their legacy to remain hidden until humanity was ready to reclaim it. Now we are. But Hansol knew that raw power alone wouldn't solve anything. The galaxy was full of species that would rather fight than accept human leadership. He needed to show them something else, something that would make them want to work with humans instead of against them. I'm going to show you why the architects left their knowledge to us, he said. Jiwoo, activate the deep space sensors. The Nexus's most advanced detection systems reached out beyond the galaxy, scanning the void between star clusters. What they found made everyone on the communication channels fall silent. Something was coming, a dark presence moving through the emptiness between galaxies. Vast beyond imagination and hungry for the energy of living worlds, the architects had known it was coming, had spent millions of years preparing defenses and gathering allies for the war that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. This is why the architects transcended, Hansol explained as the images of the approaching threat filled every screen in the fleet. They knew they couldn't fight this enemy in physical form, so they became something else and they left their knowledge to prepare the galaxy for what's coming. The alien ships that had come to fight over architect technology suddenly seemed very small and fragile. Faced with a threat that could destroy entire civilizations, old grudges and territorial disputes didn't matter anymore. How long do we have? Asked a captain from one of the smaller species, his voice shaking. The Nexus computers estimate 3 years before the first scout ships arrive, Hansol said. Maybe 5 years before the main force reaches us. That's not enough time, the Altarian admiral protested. Even with architect technology, we can't prepare defenses for the entire galaxy in just a few years. We can't, Hansol agreed. But we can if we work together. Over the next several hours, Hansol found himself in the strangest position imaginable. A 12-year-old boy negotiating with the leaders of galactic civilizations. But the Nexus had given him more than just knowledge of technology. It had also given him understanding of history, politics, and the deep connections that linked all the galaxy's species together. He offered to share architect technology freely, but only with those species willing to join a new alliance. Not an empire ruled by humans, but a partnership where each species contributed their unique strengths to the common defense. The Zephyrians, with their bioships that could adapt and evolve, would provide mobile forces. The Altarians, with their precise manufacturing, would build the new weapons and shields. The rock-like granite clans would anchor the defensive lines with their massive fortress ships, and dozens of smaller species would each add their own special abilities to the growing alliance. But why should we follow human leadership? The Altarian admiral asked. Just because you found ancient technology doesn't make you qualified to command a galactic war. You're right, Hansol said. I'm not qualified to command anything. I'm just a kid who bought a broken spaceship because it looked interesting. But that's exactly why this might work. He paused, looking out at the vast fleet of ships representing hundreds of worlds and billions of lives. The architects didn't choose humans to rule the galaxy, he continued. They chose us to serve it, to protect the younger species and guide them as they grow, to remember that no one species has all the answers and that the best solutions come from working together. And if we refuse? Asked the Zephyrian collective mind. Then you refuse, Hansol said simply. The architect technology will still awaken, because it's designed to respond to human control. But we'll share it with anyone willing to help defend the galaxy, and we'll respect anyone who chooses to go their own way. It wasn't the answer anyone had expected. Most galactic leaders were used to ultimatums and threats. not reasonable discussions from a human child who seemed genuinely interested in what was best for everyone. One by one, the alien fleets began to signal their agreement. Not surrender, but partnership. Not submission to human rule, but cooperation in a shared cause. As the Great Alliance took shape around the ancient Nexus, Han Sol sat in the Vanguard's pilot seat and thought about his grandmother Nari. She had left him enough money to buy a toy or a game, and instead he had bought a spaceship that changed the galaxy. "Do you think she knew?" he asked his father, who was helping to coordinate the Alliance fleet movements. Dongmin smiled. "Your grandmother always said you were destined for something special. Maybe she just wanted to make sure you had the tools to find it." Outside the ship, the Nexus was beginning its work of upgrading the Allied fleets with architect technology. Soon, ships from 100 worlds would carry weapons and shields powerful enough to face the darkness between the stars. And somewhere in the void, an ancient enemy was drawing closer to a galaxy that was finally ready to fight back. Han Sol leaned back in his chair and watched the stars, knowing that the real adventure was just beginning. The coordinates led them to what looked like empty space. Han Sol stared through the Vanguard's view screen at the darkness between the stars, seeing nothing but the distant glow of other galaxies. "Are you sure this is the right place?" his father asked, checking the navigation computer for the third time. "The coordinates are exact," Jiwoo said from the back of the ship, "but I'm not reading anything on the sensors." Han Sol closed his eyes and reached out with his mind the way the ship had been teaching him. The architect technology seemed to respond to thoughts and feelings as much as to buttons and controls. When he concentrated, he could sense something huge hidden in the darkness ahead. "It's there," he said softly. "It's just hiding." As if responding to his words, the Vanguard systems came alive. New displays activated, showing energy patterns that normal sensors couldn't detect, and slowly, like a giant sea creature rising from the depths of an ocean, something began to appear in front of them. It was a space station, but unlike anything Han Sol had ever imagined. The structure was the size of a small moon, built from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange lights moved across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly, and as it became visible, it began to send out signals that made every piece of architect technology in the Vanguard hum with recognition. "By the stars," Dongmin whispered. "How long has that been sitting there?" "According to these readings," Jiwoo said, her voice shaking with excitement, "it's been here for millions of years. But it's powering up now, like it's been sleeping and just woke up." The space station sent out a communication beam directly to the Vanguard. When Han Sol accepted the connection, his mind was suddenly filled with information. Not words or pictures, but pure knowledge flowing directly into his thoughts. The station was called the Nexus. It was the central hub of a network that stretched across the entire galaxy, connecting thousands of hidden facilities and millions of pieces of concealed technology, and it had been waiting for someone like Han Sol to find it. "Welcome, inheritor," a voice said inside Han Sol's mind. It sounded female, speaking with an accent he had never heard before. "I am Boram, the guardian of this facility. I have waited so long for you to arrive. Are you an architect?" Han Sol asked, speaking aloud so his father and Jiwoo could hear. "I am what the architects became," Boram replied. "Come inside, young one. There is much you need to learn, and time grows short." A docking bay opened in the side of the massive station, large enough to hold ships much bigger than the Vanguard. As they flew inside, Han Sol could see that the interior was filled with technology that seemed to be alive, growing and changing like some kind of mechanical forest. They landed on a platform that adjusted itself to perfectly fit their ship. As soon as the engines shut down, the platform began connecting cables and energy feeds to the Vanguard, as if the station was eager to communicate with the little fighter. "The atmosphere is breathable," Jiwoo reported, checking her sensors. "Temperature is perfect. It's like the station is making itself comfortable for us." They put on their environment suits anyway, just in case, and walked down the Vanguard's ramp into the docking bay. The floor felt warm under their feet, and the air had a strange smell like ozone mixed with flowers. A doorway opened in the wall ahead of them, revealing a corridor that glowed with soft blue light. As they walked through it, Han Sol could feel the station's intelligence watching them, studying them, learning about them. "This place feels alive," Dongmin said, his voice echoing in his helmet. "It is alive, in a way." Boram's voice replied, now speaking through speakers in the walls. The architects built their final works using technology that merged the mechanical with the biological. We learned that consciousness and machines could become one. The corridor led to a vast chamber filled with floating displays and streams of light that carried information too complex for human eyes to follow. In the center of the room was a pillar of crystal that pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. "Welcome to the heart of the Nexus," Boram said. From here, the architects watched over the galaxy for millions of years before they transcended to a higher form of existence. "What do you mean, transcended?" Jiwoo asked. The crystal pillar flickered, and suddenly the chamber was filled with images. They showed the history of the galaxy, stretching back through billions of years. Hansol saw the birth and death of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations, and through it all, the presence of one species that seemed to guide and protect the younger races. The architects were not aliens, Boram explained as the images continued to flow around them. They were human. The first humans to reach the stars millions of years before your people on Earth developed space travel. Hansol felt his mind reeling. That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. Humans from Earth, yes, but humanity is older than your planet. We spread across the galaxy when it was young, seeding worlds with life, guiding evolution, preparing the way for the civilizations that would come after us. The images showed vast human cities floating in space, human colonies on worlds that were now the homelands of alien species, human ships traveling between galaxies like seeds carried on the wind. What happened to them? Dongmin asked. They evolved beyond the need for physical form, Boram said. They became beings of pure consciousness, able to exist in dimensions that physical matter cannot reach. But before they left, they prepared for the day when their distant cousins from Earth would be ready to inherit their legacy. The hidden technology, Jiwoo breathed. It was all meant for us. Yes. Every piece of architect technology responds to human neural patterns because it was designed by humans for humans. We have been waiting for Earth's children to mature enough to claim their birthright. The countdown timer that had been ticking away in the Vanguard's computer appeared in the air before them, showing less than 3 months remaining. What happens when it reaches 0? Hansol asked. If no human has come to claim the inheritance by then, all architect technology will shut down permanently. We cannot risk it falling into the wrong hands. The galaxy's other species have built their civilizations on the foundations of lesser architect facilities they discovered and partially understood. If they realized the true scope of what we left behind, there would be war. Hansol looked around the chamber, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What do you want me to do? Accept your inheritance, Boram said simply. Become the guardian of architect knowledge. Guide your people as they take their place as the galaxy's shepherds. I'm just a kid, Hansol protested. I bought a broken spaceship because I thought it looked cool. I'm not ready for this. The architects chose to hide their greatest gift in the hands of a child precisely because children see possibilities that adults have forgotten, Boram replied. You saw something special in the Vanguard when experienced space traders saw only junk. You believed in impossible things when others demanded proof. That is why you are here and others are not. The crystal pillar began to pulse faster, and Hansol could feel knowledge flowing toward him like a tide. Information about faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, matter transformation, consciousness transfer, technologies that could revolutionize the galaxy or destroy it, depending on how they were used. The choice is yours, Hansol of Earth, Boram said. Accept the inheritance and guide your people to their destiny, or reject it and let the knowledge die with the countdown. Hansol looked at his father and Jiwoo, seeing the trust and belief in their eyes. Then he looked back at the crystal pillar, feeling the weight of millions of years of human history pressing down on him. He reached out and touched the crystal with his bare hand. Getting the Vanguard ready to fly took 2 more weeks of hard work. Hansol's father Dongmin had finally agreed to help them, partly because he was curious about the strange technology they had found, and partly because he was worried about what might happen if they were right about the countdown. I still think this is the craziest thing I've ever done, Dongmin said as he checked the ship's life support systems, taking a 12-year-old boy into the most dangerous part of the galaxy to meet an ancient alien civilization. They might not be aliens, Jiwoo said from where she was working on the navigation computer. Some of the data suggests they might be human. Even worse, Dongmin muttered. Humans who have been hiding in space for 50,000 years. What could go wrong? The Vanguard was beginning to look like a real spaceship again. Its hull gleamed with fresh paint and all the broken systems had been repaired or replaced. But the most amazing changes were the ones they couldn't see. As they had worked on the ship, more of the architect technology had begun to activate itself. The engines now produced twice as much power as they should have. The shields were stronger than anything on ships 10 times the Vanguard's size. And the weapon systems had upgraded themselves with targeting computers that seemed to think faster than any AI Han Sol had ever heard of. "It's like the ship is fixing itself," Jiwoo said as she watched new systems come online. Every day, something else starts working. The day before they planned to leave, Han Sol's mother Soo-jin pulled him aside for a private talk. They sat in the family's small kitchen, drinking tea and looking out at the stars through the apartment's single window. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Really sure?" Han Sol nodded. "The countdown has less than 4 months left. If we don't go, everything could fall apart. But why does it have to be you? You're just a child." "Maybe that's why," Han Sol said. "Maybe the architects knew that adults would be too scared or too proud to listen. Maybe they wanted someone young enough to still believe in impossible things." Soo-jin reached across the table and took her son's hand. "Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come home." "I promise, Mom." The next morning, the Vanguard lifted off from Station Kepler 7 for the first time in 20 years. Han Sol sat in the pilot's seat with his father beside him handling the navigation. Jiwoo was in the back, monitoring all the ship's systems and making sure the architect technology stayed stable. The journey to the void sector would take 3 days through normal space, or they could try jumping through hyperspace and arrive in a few hours. But hyperspace was dangerous, especially in an untested ship, so they decided to take the safer route. On the second day, they ran into trouble. "3 ships coming up behind us," Dongmin said, studying his scanner screen. "They're not human." Han Sol looked at his own display. The ships were long and curved, like giant sea creatures swimming through space. He recognized them from his studies. Zephyrian bioships grown rather than built, and piloted by aliens who looked like walking plants. "They're hailing us," Jiwoo called from the back. "Put them on screen," Han Sol said. The main display flickered, and then showed the face of a Zephyrian captain. The alien had green skin that looked like bark, and eyes like golden leaves. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through trees. "Human vessel, you are traveling through Zephyrian space without permission. State your purpose or prepare to be detained." Han Sol looked at his father, who shrugged. "Tell them the truth. What else can we do?" "We're on a mission to prevent a galactic disaster," Han Sol said to the alien captain. "We need to reach the void sector." The Zephyrian laughed, a sound like rustling leaves. "A disaster? In a ship that appears to be held together with repair paste and hope? Little human, turn around and go home before you hurt yourself." "We can't do that," Han Sol said firmly. "Lives depend on us reaching our destination." The alien captain's expression grew serious. "Then you will be detained until we can verify your story. Prepare to be boarded." The 3 Zephyrian ships moved to surround the Vanguard. They were larger and more heavily armed than the little fighter ship. In a normal situation, resistance would have been suicide, but the Vanguard was no longer a normal ship. "Han Sol," Jiwoo called urgently. "The architect systems are activating on their own. I'm reading power levels I've never seen before." "What do I do?" Han Sol asked. "I don't know. The ship seems to be taking control of itself." The Vanguard suddenly accelerated, moving faster than it should have been able to. The Zephyrian ships tried to follow, but their bioengines couldn't match the incredible speed of the architect drive systems. "Impossible," the alien captain said over the communications link. "No human ship can move that fast." Then the Zephyrians fired their weapons. Green energy beams lanced through space toward the Vanguard, enough firepower to destroy a dozen normal fighters. But when the beams hit the ship, they simply disappeared, absorbed by shields that shouldn't have existed. "What kind of technology is this?" the Zephyrian captain demanded. Han Sol felt the ship's systems responding to his thoughts, as if the architect technology was connected directly to his mind. He could sense the Zephyrian ships understand their weaknesses, know exactly how to disable them without causing permanent damage. "I don't want to hurt you," Han Sol broadcast to the alien ships, "but I have to reach the void sector. Please don't try to stop us." The Zephyrians fired again, this time with their most powerful weapons. The Vanguard not only absorbed the attack, but somehow turned the energy back on itself, creating a pulse that shut down the bioship's engines without harming their crews. As the Zephyrian vessels drifted helplessly in space, the Vanguard jumped to hyperspace, moving faster and more smoothly than any ship Dongmin had ever piloted. "How is this possible?" he asked, staring at the impossible readings on his instruments. "The ship is teaching itself how to use the architect technology," Jiwoo said, her voice filled with wonder. "And it's teaching us too. Hansol, look at your neural activity readings." Hansol glanced at the medical scanner. His brain waves showed patterns he had never seen before, as if his mind was adapting to work with the ship's advanced systems. The architects didn't just hide technology in human ships, he realized. They designed it to work with human minds. They were waiting for humans to find it. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the void sector, they found they weren't alone. Ships from dozens of different species were gathering in the area, all drawn by the same mysterious signals that had started broadcasting from the hidden facility. "Word about our encounter with the Zephyrians has spread," Dongmin said, studying the mass of ships on his scanner. "Everyone wants to know what kind of technology we're using." Some of the ships were friendly, sending messages of greeting and curiosity. Others were hostile, demanding that the humans surrender their vessel for inspection. A few were simply watching, waiting to see what would happen next. But none of that mattered to Hansol. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, he could feel the presence of the architect facility, somewhere ahead in the darkness of the void. It was calling to him, just as the Vanguard had called to him in the scrapyard. The real journey was just beginning. Hansol pressed his face against the thick glass window of the space station, watching the huge ships float past like metal whales in the black ocean of space. Station Kepler 7 was home to thousands of people from different planets, but Hansol only cared about one place, the scrapyard where old spaceships went to die. Every day after school, the 12-year-old boy would sneak away from his parents' small apartment and run through the station's corridors to reach the scrapyard. The owner, an alien named Vor with purple skin and 4 arms, always grumbled when he saw Hansol coming. But the boy never caused trouble. He just wanted to look at the ships. Today was different. Today, Hansol had money in his pocket. Real money. His grandmother Nari had died 3 months ago, and she had left him everything she owned. Most kids his age would buy games or toys or maybe a fast hover bike. But Hansol had other plans. He walked through the scrapyard's main gate, past rows of broken ships and piles of metal parts. Vor was sitting at his desk counting credits on a small computer. When he saw Hansol, he looked up with his big yellow eyes. "What do you want today, little human?" Vor asked in his rough voice. "I told you before, no touching the ships." Hansol pulled out a credit chip from his pocket. "I want to buy one." Vor's 4 arms stopped moving. He stared at the credit chip, then at Hansol's serious face. "Buy what?" "A ship." "I have enough money." The alien merchant started laughing. It was a sound like rocks falling down a hill. "A ship? Boy, you can't even reach the controls of most ships. What would you do with a spaceship?" Hansol pointed to the far corner of the scrapyard. There, covered in dust and bird droppings, sat an old fighter ship. It was smaller than the other vessels, painted in faded blue and white colors. Parts of its hull were dented and one wing had a big hole in it. "That one," Hansol said. "How much?" Vor looked where the boy was pointing and laughed even harder. "The old Vanguard? That piece of junk has been here for 2 years. Nobody wants it. The engines are dead, the weapons don't work, and the life support system has more holes than my grandmother's fishing net." "How much?" Hansol asked again. The alien stopped laughing. He looked at the credit chip in Hansol's hand, then at the broken ship. 5,000 credits. "But I'm telling you, it's a waste of money. You'd be better off buying a toy spaceship." Hansol handed over the credit chip without saying another word. Vor took it with one of his hands and slipped it into his computer. After a few seconds, he nodded. "It's yours, crazy little human. But don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you made." That evening, Hansol walked home through the station's busy streets. People of all shapes and sizes moved around him. Tall blue aliens with long necks, short furry creatures that looked like walking carpets, and humans like himself. But he barely saw any of them. All he could think about was his ship. When he got home, his parents were waiting for him in their small living room. His father, Dongmin, was a cargo pilot who worked for the station's shipping company. His mother, Su-jin, repaired computers and other electronic devices. They both looked very upset. "Vor called us," his mother said. "He told us what you did." Han-sol sat down on the couch between them. "I bought a ship." "You bought junk," his father said. "Han-sol, that money was supposed to help you go to college. It was supposed to give you a better future." "It will," Han-sol said quietly. "The ship is special." His parents looked at each other. They had the same look they always got when they thought their son was being foolish. "Special how?" his mother asked. "It's broken. It doesn't even fly." "I can fix it." "You're 12 years old," his father said. "You don't know how to fix spaceships." Han-sol stood up. "I can learn, and Jiwoo will help me." Jiwoo lived in the engineering section of the station with her parents. She was the smartest kid Han-sol knew, always taking apart machines and putting them back together. If anyone could help him fix the ship, it was her. The next morning, Han-sol met Jiwoo at the scrapyard. She was a year older than him, with short black hair and hands that were always dirty from working on machines. When she saw the Vanguard, she whistled softly. "This is your ship?" she asked, walking around it slowly. "It's pretty beat up. Can we fix it?" Jiwoo climbed up on the wing and looked into the cockpit through the cracked glass. "Maybe, but it'll take a lot of work. And we'll need parts." "I have some money left," Han-sol said. "It's not just about money," Jiwoo said, jumping down from the wing. "This is a military fighter. It's got systems we've never seen before. Complex stuff." Han-sol touched the ship's hull. The metal felt warm under his hand, even though the station's air was cool. "There's something different about this one. I can feel it." Jiwoo gave him a strange look. "Feel what?" "I don't know. It's like it's sleeping, not dead." That afternoon, they convinced Vor to let them move the ship to Han-sol's family apartment building. The building had a large cargo bay where residents could work on their vehicles. Han-sol's father helped them move the ship using a cargo lifter, though he grumbled about it the whole time. "This is crazy," Dongmin said as they lowered the Vanguard into the cargo bay. "What will the neighbors think?" "They'll think we're fixing a spaceship," Han-sol said. Over the next few weeks, Han-sol and Jiwoo spent every free moment working on the Vanguard. They cleaned off years of dirt and space dust. They patched the holes in the hull with metal plates. They replaced broken wires and fixed cracked screens. The more they worked, the more puzzled Jiwoo became. "This ship is weird," she said one day while looking at the engine systems. "Some of these parts don't match anything in the repair manuals." "What do you mean?" "I mean the power systems are different. The way the engines connect to the main computer is different. It's like this ship was built using different rules." Han-sol didn't care about rules. All he cared about was making his ship fly again. But as they worked deeper into the ship's systems, they started finding things that shouldn't be there. Strange components that didn't appear in any technical manual. Wiring patterns that seemed too complex for a simple fighter ship. And sometimes, late at night when the cargo bay was quiet, Han-sol could swear he heard the ship humming softly to itself, as if it were dreaming of the stars.